We used to watch MSNBC in the morning, Makom show, but I felt like every morning I was being attacked. So we changed to CBS, and that's so soft and so gentle and much more folksy. So we're kind of stuck there.
I used to watch the Today Show
Years ago.
Yeah.
I still do.
I stopped
Yeah,
too.
on Good Morning
I
America.
stopped my morning that way with the Today Show.
I was
So
watching Today Show.
we are recording, and it's 12 o'clock.
Okay.
So Rabbi, if you're ready to go, and Toby and Debbie, we're going to mute. Oh, I muted myself. Thank you very much. It's nice to be with everybody. Sorry I missed you yesterday. Julia, I heard you rocked. And I want to thank everybody for participating. Rabbi, I'm just going to turn it right over to you.
Okay. Good to see everybody. I feel reinvigorated and revived. And refreshed. That was some of the words that our facilitator at the Rabbinical Assembly Convention wanted us to write down how we felt. And I thank you all for allowing me the time to have my rabbinic development the last couple of days. It was the Rabbinical Assembly Convention on they used a platform called SwapCard. It was really fantastic. And similar to us, they had many more people participating than in the past, but I'm actually surprised that we didn't have even more people, but it was really wonderful. And I don't know if it was because it was on my mind or what, but you'll see that the teaching today from Pirkei Avot goes right into something I learned. So after we do our Psalm and the Mishaberach, I'll tell you all about one of the sessions we had and how it relates to this. And I was going to ask the instructor if he saw it too, but I didn't. So I could just be seeing what I learned into Pirkei Avot, or maybe it's actually there. We shall see. So according to my notes, I have Marilyn Cohen singing Mishaberach today. Is that correct? And Marilyn, just please do pause between the paragraphs so we can all recite the names of our loved ones individually. And if you are singing, you're not, oh. She was just closing her door, it looked like, and now she's, right? Is that what you're doing? Okay. She's with us.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach imotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Thank you, Marilyn. Yasha kochech to you. You have a beautiful voice.
Thank you.
And today is Thursday, Psalm 81. It's almost Friday and almost ready for Shabbat. So Psalm 81, my notes show me that I have Ruth Shapiro reading in memory of her father, Heinz Meyer, sorry if I mispronounced, and Dina Gordon, both reading responsibly. So you can decide amongst yourselves who's going to do even and odd.
I'll do three. For the leader upon the Gittit, a psalm of the South. She muted?
That's what I was checking.
Dina, you have to unmute.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, but besides that, I get to a G and there's nothing else there. So I'm trying to figure out how to. Oh,
That's
sing
probably-
with joy to God, our strength. Shout with gladness to the God of Jacob.
Strike up a melody, sound the timbrel, play sweet tones on harp and lyre.
Sound the shofar on the new moon and again on the full moon for our festival days.
It is the law for the people of Israel, a statute of the God of Jacob.
God ordained it for Joseph's descendants when he rose against the land of Egypt. I have heard the speech that I had previously ignored.
I removed the burden from their shoulder. Their hands were freed from the load.
When you called out in distress, I rescued you. Unseen, I answered you in thunder. I tested your faith at an oasis in the wilderness. Selah.
Hear this warning, my people, Israel, if you would only listen.
There will be no strange God in your midst. You shall not worship an alien God.
I am Adonai, your God, who brought you out of Egypt. Open your mouth wide and I will fill it.
But my people did not listen. Israel would have none of me.
So I let them persist in their stubbornness. I let them follow their own inclinations.
If only my people would listen to me. If only Israel would walk in my ways.
How quickly I would subdue their foes and strike out at their oppressors.
Enemies of Adonai shall be humbled. Their downfall shall be unending.
But you I will feed with the richest of wheat. With honey from a rock, I will satisfy you.
Asher Kochachen to both of you. Thank you for reading our psalm today. And we are up to Pirkei Avot 3, chapter 3, teaching 20. And it's a little longer than most. So I am going to show you the English slide and then I'll discuss. And if you have any questions, if you can just put them in the chat towards the end of my discussion, so it's not disruptive to people as we're looking. He used to say, so who is the he? It's Rabbi Akiva. That's who was in the previous couple of Mishnayot in this chapter. Everything is given on collateral and a net is spread over all the living. The shop is open. The merchant extends credit. The ledger is open. The hand writes, and whoever wishes to borrow, let the individual come and borrow. The collectors make their rounds constantly, every day, and collect payment from the person whether they realize it or not. They have proof to rely upon. The judgment is a truthful judgment, and everything is prepared for the banquet. So this is a pretty deep one. I was glad I had a few days to prepare and think about this over. So the statement, as I said, is attributed to Rabbi Akiva. You wouldn't necessarily know that, but that's what they say, that the he refers to him. He lived in a very turbulent time, Rabbi Akiva. And if you really think about this, this is one of the more difficult and heavy Mishnayot in Pirkei Avot. It really shows that it wasn't necessarily a cheerful time. It's a deep and timeless truth taught in the Mishnah. It's a parable. It really isn't a straight out teaching. It's beautiful in some way. I think I've always loved parables. It's probably why I love reading. That it's a mashal, that's the Hebrew word. So what's going to be the nimshal, the interpretation of it? So it's drawn from everyday life, and it truly reflects business practices. That Rabbi Akiva was also a businessman before he was a great scholar. He worked, and similar to Rashi, Rashi is known as a He had a vineyard. He had a winery. So Rashi, of course, is one of our commentaries that says the shop is open. It reflects the business, like he also had a business, Rashi. So what's the shop? It's the world. And who is the shopkeeper? It's God. And what's the ledger? Doesn't it remind you of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? I was talking to someone today, how she's thinking in her congregation about a lay leader, what they're going to do this year. It's never too early to think about Yom Kippur in our ledger. The ledger contains our record of deeds and misdeeds. Remember, God sees everything. If we miss the mark, doesn't matter if no one else saw it, God still sees it. The collector are the acts of heaven. And the banquet, that's the being prepared for the world to come. So I'm going to break it down even more. Think about often we are taught in life and in Pirkei Avot that we're created in the divine image. That's a heavy task to think about it, that if each of us is created as if we're God, we have to act that way. We have to act as if we're partners with God, that we're forever bound in this debt with our Creator, with God. And the unique act that God did to fashion the universe, that God willed our universe into existence and created each of us. It should give us a sense of humility. If you're created by God and your main boss is God, I once told a group of rabbis that. It's like, you know who my boss is? My boss is God. I work for God. And I'm a humble person to begin with. And it really creates a sense of humility to think about that. And this parable is a striking, simple idea, but such spiritual depth to it. The symbols used, of course, are credit collectors and debtors, and we all know about that. And it's an expansive metaphor about truly our relationship. Life is about relationships, and this mission is about the relationship that we have between ourselves as human beings and with God. And each day we must show gratitude to God for having each day, to having each other, to being able to look around our squares here and see that if we're all created B'Tselem Elohim in God's image, we're looking at God right here every time you look at another person. And even more so, when you look into the mirror, remember that that's a creation of God as well. And that God has given us all the tools to pursue our dreams, our spiritual desires, because we have this relationship with God. So we have to use this time that God gave us, this freedom and opportunity that has been given to us with humility, but we have to receive it by using our time, our energy, our resources, our freedom for moral objectives to help God. So it's come up a few times in the social justice Pirkei Avot that it's always like, gives me a jarring feeling every time Rabbi Shmuley writes it in his book, that we're each given 86,400 seconds each day. I'm like, man, it's easy enough to do the math. That I could do. I didn't need a calculator probably, but 86,400 seconds, that we should be accountable for all those seconds. And each of those seconds is a gift. It's a gift for ourselves. It's a gift for our souls, but it's on loan to us. Everything's given on collateral. It's a pledge. It's a loan. All those hours, how are we going to repay that loan? What are we going to do with those hours? By living and giving our best selves, by creating an attitude of gratitude. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of that term, but do you put it into context? Do you really do it? To really, since quarantine, I've been journaling, but I've been journaling my notes about Psalms and Pirkei Avot. My dad always journaled. It was fascinating reading it. It wasn't like the deepest things. It was what he ate and what he wore each day and who he met with. And it was kind of cool to read eventually, but like the day I gave birth to my daughter and what he wrote. But to really write down in a journal what you're thankful for each day, what you got through that day, what your plans are for that day, and not a to-do list, but an aspiration list, a list of what you're thankful for. It creates this attitude of gratitude, to have spiritual gratitude. And then see what you're going to do with that gratitude. Will you be responsible for it? Will you do something moral? And understand that as you're doing this, you're fulfilling a gift that God gave us, that our life each day is a debt to God. And we can't just think about ourselves. We have to do it in community. So there's a idea that I want to put out that I read about. It's on me to repay my debt, so I should go at this alone. Yes, we might live alone, but at the same time, we live in community. So I started off, I'm going to stop share for a minute because I like to see people when I teach. I haven't totally figured that out yet. All right, you got the idea of what the text is all about. So I told you that this week was the Rabbinical Assembly Convention. And one of the phrases that people always loved, and we had the opportunity to have a lot of women being together in sessions. And they're my people. They're the female rabbis. There's a connection between all genders of rabbis, but the women are like my people. And I look at all you guys and you're my people. Our sisters are my people. We need this support always. So I learned something and I was like, I'm going to share this with my people, all of you here. So one of the sessions they had was a limud session, a study session. There was so much offered. It's mind-boggling. And I think that's why my mind's still like going overdrive. It's always going drive, but it's like overdrive now. So one of the sessions I did was with Rabbi David Golinkin. Over the years, I've known him for 26 years now. I met him when I was at the Schechter Institute. And I have to say, I'm really privileged that for many different reasons, when he comes to the States, I'm always on his agenda and I'm on his list of people that he sees. Last year, the place that we could meet up was at Port Authority. And not it was a Pleasant Port Authority. It was the, haven't been there in so long, I forgot. It was the train station. So when I was waiting for my New Jersey Transit train, he met me in the train station. It was great. I never sat and actually ate anything in the train station. We had drinks. So yesterday a few days ago, I had the opportunity to study with him. And it goes along with this Mishnah completely. His teaching was the essential values of Judaism in times of stress and change. So he proposed 5 values in Judaism to bring us through this situation. And no matter where you live, it worked. And then when I was studying this Mishnah, I'm like, it's perfect. So his first value was humility. This is what the Mishnah is talking about. We have to be humble. We have to realize that we're put on this earth for a short period of time that God's giving us. And we have to be humble and realize that it's a gift that we're here. His first teaching. The second was an attitude of gratitude. I'm not making this up. This was like, whoa, this is the teaching I'm about to teach. And he's just teaching it. Exactly. 3 was to slow down. And he was discussing how he travels to America and across the world actually all the time. And this pandemic has forced all of us to slow down. It's amazing. I'm usually a go-getter and travel all the time, and it's caused all of us. I haven't seen the exact place here yet in our Mishnah to tell us to slow down, but perhaps if you do too much, think about it. So they're telling us that we're on life by debt. If you're always spending money, your credit card bills go sky high. So slowing down is teaching us we need to not use our credit card so much. We shouldn't use so much of our credit that God gave us because then we're going to be in debt. To slow down in this Mishnah, we're saying because life is so fragile, don't be so daring, don't be so risky. And pandemic has taught us all we need to slow down. And I don't know about you, but I've actually enjoyed it in a bit to just not have to be running constantly. I run in a different way. I run from one Zoom to the next, but at least it's in one place. The 4th is to turn curses into blessings, was what Rabbi Golinkin said. And what is it saying in our Mishnah here? How are we turning curses into blessings? That what we're doing now, the very last part of the Mishnah says that we're preparing it for the day of judgment, for that banquet in the end, that all we do is for some better time. I'm not going to say that it's Olam Haba, the world to come. I told somebody recently what I was dreaming about, and he's like, that's Olam Haba. I said, no, you know what? I can do it now. That we can turn all of our curses into blessings. That we're accountable for all of our actions, good and bad, is what the Mishnah is teaching us. That God will judge us mercifully, no matter what we do, hopefully, because El Rachum V'Chanun, that God is a caring, merciful God. And that even if something looks bad now, the curses, it will become good. That God's merely lending things to us to use, and things will turn. One of the terms that I heard a lot at convention, and we all have probably heard the story of Gamze Latova, that this too will be good, that now might feel bad, but it'll turn good. And the other turn of that side of that, I don't love this part, but it is, that just because it's great now, just because you have a lot on your credit card, doesn't mean that you won't run down your tab and that you won't go to zero. So appreciate what you have each day. And that goes along with humility. And then the last part of what Rabbi Galinkin taught us, which let's see how we can relate it to this Mishnah, was passing on kindness to others. You know, mitzvah goreret mitzvah, that one good deed leads to another, that taking charge, I'm going to look back at these, at the text again, that making sure that what we write down and what we give to the merchant, to God, then helps somebody else. That the sometimes giving feels so much better than receiving, and that kindness to others. This Mishnah is teaching us that the ledger's open, our hand writes. We might want to borrow. Sometimes you need to be the borrower, and sometimes you could be the lender. So it goes both ways, and sometimes that borrowing and lending is really very heartfelt. If you've ever had to help somebody who never asks for help, and then or someone who needs money and you're able to give it to them to help them, that's the kindness that Rabbi Galinkin's talking about. The kindness that's the what's coming out of this Mishnah too, that we have to remember that we're both sides of that. We're the creditors and the debtors at times. That, think about it this way. I texted my mother and my sister today, and I wrote, you always told me it was really hard to be a parent, but today was the first time that my daughter took the car and drove to her school. So if any of you are from New Jersey, I don't know if Susan's on. Yes, Susan's on. So we live at exit 100, and she had to go to exit 80 something, 76. I don't even know where the school is. I mean, I know how to get there. I don't remember the name of the exit, but that's a long way to go on the Garden State Parkway all by herself. And she's never driven the Garden State Parkway by herself. And why am I telling you this? Oh, I know why. Because I was like, God lent me my daughter and I gave her life, but she's now giving me life as well. And man, I know, I look at all these people here, her parents, grandparents, aunts, relatives. It's very nerve-wracking that I gave this person life, and now, man, I gotta break the umbilical cord. So we have to think about that God gave us this life too. And what are we going to do with it? So as we reach the end of this week, I don't know about all of you, I hope you had a good week too. I had a great week. And one of the last things that I'm going to close on that I want to have other people talk about is that I'm going to share something with you. And I'm not asking for your accolades. I am asking for your donations. So Sunday's my birthday, and I'm very proud of how old I am. So originally on Facebook, thank you. Many of you have donated already. And it's really a great way to outreach to people on Facebook. And you have all these friends that you have sort of a connection, and some you really do and some you really don't. But that I'm hoping that for my birthday, first I was aspirational and wanted to reach $4,900, $100 for each year of my life. I've now realized maybe that won't happen, but maybe $2,450, $50 for each year of my life to donate to Women's League for Conservative Judaism, because my life has been so enriched by being the executive director, by being involved with Women's League. I had friends on the Rabbinical Assembly Convention. A friend of mine last night at like 9:30, we had a program. She's like, you look really good. I'm like, I don't know, wearing glasses. My hair was straight. I said, I'm really happy. And that's because of all of my 65 presence of God here. So if you want to make my birthday happy on Sunday, which I want to thank my mother for creating, look on my Facebook page, and I'm on Facebook now, so you can go to there now. And I want to try to get to $2,450 for Women's League. We're almost up to 600, and that was like, first my goal was like really low, and I made it like that. So I thank everybody for that. And I want to just end here, and I want to ask people what they think about their ledger and their creditor. And I just want to put out credit to one person. The head of my junior congregation in more than 40 years ago, when I went to junior congregation, donated $100 to Women's League. Jerry Waxman. And he got me to this position now because he let me stand there with my sister with my siddur upside down. And I sung my heart out. And I guess he knew back then when I was like 4 or 5 that I was going to be a rabbi, and he's supporting Women's League. So what do people think about this Mishnah? Does it bring you up, or does it make you shaky? Does it worry you a little bit? Because like when I think about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and the ledger, it could be scary, but it can be invigorating at the same time. So unmute yourself if you have something to add or thoughts about this teaching today.
I
Debbie.
think so much of it is how you frame it. I mean, again, another way of, you read the Mishnah and sometimes I go, but the way you framed it is, I was originally seeing Yom Kippur and the ledger and time running out and the scale. But the way you put it was more in the, what should we be looking for? Not looking forward, not looking backwards. So I put in the chat that COVID has really made me focus on exactly what's important. I teach Sunday school. I went from 3.5 hours to half an hour. You really have to focus on what is it that's really important. You commented about you feel like you're less busy, and I do feel I'm not running like crazy, but mentally I'm running from Zoom to Zoom to Zoom. But what's really important? Where do we really spend our time? Because it's important to know that for when we go back to some semblance of new normal.
And I have to just clarify that I'm still running, but it's running in a different way. It's not running to catch a train. It's not being on time to services. It's that I could still run to turn on my computer. So, and I think it's important to reframe at each part of our life, what we're doing. One more thought? Any other ideas? Jeanette, thank you. That she said that how you can turn a a curse into a blessing, but making a positive. Some of the most difficult times in my modest life were really difficult, but I look back and I learned so much from it. And I bet I'm not the only person from that we can really learn a lot from the greatest challenges and struggles. It's just hard at that moment to think about that because you're in such a struggle at the time. Marion, I saw you unmuted. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, a couple of years ago, my daughter got me onto, we were sending back and forth what we felt gratitude, what we felt about each day. She would send me how she felt, whether it was looking out and seeing the sun and the weather, and I would write that I'd had a good day about this. And we did it for a long time. We sort of lapsed, but it's a very good practice to do with somebody, to say how grateful you are each day that you live. It is. We're grateful for a lot of things.
Exactly. Having a jar of gratitude. My son had a project in school this year. It was on Thanksgiving where he brought the jar home and he had little pieces of paper and he had to write down what he was grateful for. And it's still in our break front. Now, it's not the prettiest thing in the break front, but it's probably the most meaningful thing in the break front. So my suggestion to all of us as we head into the weekends shortly is to write down what you're grateful for and to keep your own ledger, knowing God's keeping our ledger, but we can keep our own ledger, and our own ledger is in our own hands. So I hope everyone can keep their ledger with good health and happiness.
I just wanted to add, excuse me, a couple things. A very wise woman always taught me when times were tough that the bad things will end. So the good times end too, but the bad times end. Also, during this pandemic, my husband and I have spent so much time realizing how lucky we are and how grateful we are. And he has learned to go grocery shopping. He never did that other than if he wanted to go in and buy himself some cookies or something. But now, yesterday, I had to go to the grocery store and the butcher, and it was like, oh, I have to make 2 stops. I'm so used to staying home. And finally, every night before I go to sleep, before I do my little personal prayer in my head, I start with listing at least 3 things for which I'm grateful for that day. And it can be anything. And it's a great thing to do before you fall asleep. I think I often fall asleep just as I complete that before I get to the rest, but because you're thinking of good things as you're falling asleep. So, but there's a lot for all of us to be grateful for.
I like that idea. I'm writing it down about thinking about things you're grateful for before you go to sleep. It's much better than going to sleep thinking about all the worries and what you didn't accomplish and what you have to accomplish the next day. So I know that I look around and I'm grateful for all of you, for sure. So I'm going to turn to Edna now, who will be reading our names of our loved ones who we say Kaddish for, and if there are any yurt sites at the end that she doesn't have, you can add them.
Lovingly remember Evelyn Seelig, Sue Press, Leona Ellickberg, Dolores Megan, Phyllis Haas, Ivan Stanton, Sylvia Kraus, Herb Bluebars, Ellen Babbitt, Theodore Fishman, Richard Merrick, Lillian Tobias, Doris Hildebrandt, Ruth Lewis Bloomfield, Michael Klingbaum, Michael Schrank, Shirley Shapiro, Carol Hope Taub, David Levy, Phyllis Gruson Weinstein, Rabbi Eric Wilner, Yossi Goldstein, Isidore Goldberg, Bernard Stein, Martin Fasting, Myrna Fasting, Gloria Miller, Jerome Maddens, David Kachuk, May their memories be a blessing.
Thank you, Edna. And if anyone has any names of loved ones you have yurt site for today, please unmute yourself and add them at this time.
Did you say my father, Heinz Mayer?
We'll add him. Heinz Mayer.
My mother, Lillian Rappaport.
My father, Richard Mann.
I had that here. I apologize. I had that.
Mark's grandmother, Margaret Furman, who died on her son's birthday.
Oh.
My father-in-law made it just horrible.
May all our loved ones' memories be for a blessing. And at this time, I have in my notes that Elaine Klein will be leading us in Kaddish today. So please try to go along with, if you can hear Elaine, as she'll be leading us. So please unmute yourself if you'll be reciting the mourner's Kaddish, and we will also respond to you if you want to unmute as well. So Elaine, I'll be pointing and you can read.
I'm ready. Yisgadal, V'yitgadash, Shmei Rabbah, Alma, Divra, Yirutei, V'yamli, Malchutei, Machayim, V'yomekom, V'chayim, Dechol, Beit Israel, Ba'agala, Uvizman, Ariv, V'yamru, Amen. Hey, Shmei, Rabbah, V'rah, Leolam, Umei, Almaya, Yisra, Yisraman, Yisnaseh, Yithadar, Yitala, May, Dekudashah, Le'elo, Imkol, Birchata, Shirata, Tushbechata, Nechemata, Amiran, Bialmo, V'imru, Amen. Yehi, Shlomo, Rabbah, Min Shemaya, Chayim, Aleinu, Bi'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom Mimramav, Oseh Shalom Aleinu, Bi'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen.
Elaine, yes, talk to you for leading us. Thank you very much. And we had many yurtsets today. May all of their memories continue to be a blessing in our life. And I have everyone unmuted, but I can still hear people. And at this time, I just want to check. We have a executive committee meeting, so it was possible that Debbie was going to have to go to prepare for that. I think she did jump off.
She did. She jumped off. She just jumped off.
Okay. So I wish everybody a great day. I hope that you have read your Women's League Week that came out earlier this week and marked your calendars and registered. We have so much going on. It's really fantastic. We had a great Shabbat message this week, and just enjoy everything. I have noticed that we have some openings in our Sign Up Genius for activities for different parts of our Makom B'Yachad. I believe the last time I looked, we may have even needed a reader for our Kaddish list for next week. And there's always openings for teaching. And for Psalms, I want to thank Debbie and Toby for organizing all of that. I want to see if they, and thank you for wishing me a happy birthday. I thank you in advance for your donations to Women's League. Let's see if we can get to my, I always have these dreams. Hopefully it's not an unrealistic dream to try to raise $24.50 for my birthday for Women's League, but you never know. I hope. Debbie and Toby, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just that there's only one teaching left for March, so hopefully someone will grab it right away.
Grab it up. Grab it up if you want it.
And there's singing Mishaberach, there's reading the list. People just continue to volunteer, so thank you.
And Rabbi, I just want to say I appreciate your example of how to make oneself much younger, because you're on Facebook, it still says 100, you're trying to get $100 for every year, and your goal is $24.50, which means you're going to turn 24 and a half. So I'll have to remember that for my next birthday.
Yeah, I changed one place I wrote to $24.50, and then I must have not said $100 for each day.
That's okay, but I'm going to remember that for my birthday. Maybe I'll do a fundraiser just to cut my age in half.
Yeah. Nah, I like my age, that's for sure. And I hope to live till 120, God willing. And I look at my mother on the bottom and thank her for getting me to this time. So a good day to everybody and a Shabbat Shalom. And I thank everyone for teaching. And Marilyn Cohen.
I just want to say, my mom says hello. She's on the phone.